Maybe you'll never die, maybe you're gonna live forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Hello, and welcome to, yet again, what appears to be the 10th episode of What Would You Like to Learn Today? Today I've been asked to explain immortality, which is interesting. Whenever you're explaining something this complicated, it's always good to start off with a classical illusion. So I'm going to tell you the Greek myth of Tithonus, sorry. Ganymede's brother, part of the royal house of Troy, abducted by a Titanide, a female Titan, by the name of Eos, who was in charge of the dawn. Anyway, Zeus stepped in and took away Ganymede to be his own personal friend. And Eos tried to cut a deal for Tithonus to make him immortal, but she forgot to ask for him to stay young. Okay. In the original form of the Greek myth, let me see. She has to, eventually, he ages so much that she has to shut him away in a room, and he babbles endlessly, has no more strength at all, even such as he once had in his supple limbs. Supple limbs, of course, is a direct quote. Now, so you never know with this immortality gig. You never know where it's going to land you. It might not be so sweet. And in the later version of that myth, by the way, he turns into a cicada. He gets all gnarled up and then he just sits around creaking all the time, I guess. Anyway, well, as for us though, right, realistic proportions of immortality, they don't look too good. True immortality would imply that we could never be killed, and we're not quite there yet. So let's talk about biological solutions first. There's a couple options. There's alloplasty, which is basically as bits wear out, you replace them with mechanical bits. This is sort of your Jarvik hearts, your Samurai-Buki livers. They're liquid skin, like fake skin, that sort of thing. Okay, it works up to a point, and we're always finding new ways to replace parts of us that wear out. But so far, we haven't really found a way to replace the brain. Okay, then there's autoplasty, which we're not up to beyond skin grafts, which is where you replace bits of you that wear out with more bits of yourself. We'll probably get there in another 10 years with stem cells. Look forward to being able to regrow new parts. That might enable us to regrow nerve tissue and brain tissue, but we would then have to relearn whatever it was in charge of. If you get a stroke and you have to regrow that part. That would be fun. Let's see. Things you can do right now. There's a couple options. The first one is, of course, calorie restriction. You hear a lot about this. The basic idea is that if you don't eat that much, you won't age so fast. You won't be working so hard. Your body will be taking it a little easier because it's not getting as much fuel. Okay? This directly contradicts my previous statements in my nutrition lecture. This states that you should not always have as much nutrition as you possibly can. And this will enable you to function for a longer period of time. But at somewhat less powerful capacity, shall we say. Let's see. Now there's another effect. This is centenarians. They seem to have some sort of trick. There's a trick to being a centenarian. People who grow to be centenarians, physically they all tend to be in good shape, and they all tend to be really chipper, and they don't really have that many health problems. And eventually, when they do die, they go down hard, and they go out fast. Which isn't immortality, but it sort of gives you a sense of what you might end up with. Okay. Now let's talk mortality curves. Let's be actuaries. Actuaries are the people who decide how much life insurance they should offer you and how much they should charge you for it. Okay. Let's talk about something here. It's called a Gompertz curve. Okay. And it's basically sigmoid, okay? This is longevity graph versus mortality, okay? Viewed as a segment of the population, okay? What happens is, right, there's not that many people die during the first parts of their life, right? Assuming that you have conquered infant mortality. This is assuming industrialized society, this curve is anyway. And then, it isn't until you get to be rather past the midpoint that death starts occurring in a gross degree. But then at the top of the curve, it bottoms out again, just like it does here. This is the centenarian effect, okay? This is what's known as late life mortality deceleration, which is delightful to say. Now, there's another factor here. This is called the Maychem adjustment parameter, which basically enables you to redraw this curve depending on what sort of technology you have available to stop aging, right? So like this would be a curve in like a third world country where there's high infant mortality and people don't last that long. This would be a curve in some advanced futuristic place where there's much less death, and doctors are even better than we have now. But it means that if you're lucky, you can be in that outer, the edge of the bell curve. So there's something called quantum immortality. The basic idea is that, okay, so in the next second, you could die or you could not die, right? Two outcomes. In one universe out there, you die. In another universe, probably most of them, you live, okay? Every second that passes, you have a chance of dying, but you also have a chance of not dying, okay? So, if there's infinite universes, that means that some form of you will always continue and just happen not to die. What sort of grotesque life you lead, I leave that to your imagination. Now, eventually, if you keep sliding out this way, you'll reach something that's called actuarial escape velocity, which is when the Macom parameter that adjusts for technological anti-aging or pro-aging in some cases becomes so large that for every year you live, science discovers how to add more than a year to your life, okay? Which is kind of an interesting idea. So you could never age fast enough to outgrow the gerontology medicine. Interesting. So we have that to look forward to. Currently, I think we're adding about a quarter of a year of life to expectancy per year, but maybe that could accelerate. Who knows? Now, lastly, one of the other problems with immortals, of course, is that they can end up running the game because they would never die and they would accumulate all the property. Jonathan Swift talked about this in one of his Gulliver's things. His idea was there was this society where some people just happened to be immortal. They weren't immune to aging, but they just didn't die. And it was kind of random. They always had like a weird birthmark over their eye. And what ended up happening is they said, well, we're going to declare them dead at 80. And then they become wards of the state to prevent them from taking over everything. Okay? The quote is, immortals would in time become proprietors of the whole nation and engross the civil power, which, for want of abilities to manage, must end in the ruin of the public. So, I'll leave you that to chew on. Eventually, of course, we'll be able to download our consciousness into computers and then we'll never die. Then we'll have to just worry about the universe winding up with entropy and all that at the end of time. Freeman Dyson has some ideas about that, but they mostly involve asymptotic use of energy in a closed universe. It's not worth thinking about. Okay.